There are two people here that are very special to me. One is Herschel and one is Jessica, and they're from organizations that are similarly minded to myself. So the rest of you are very special as well, but those two I'd really like to acknowledge in the room and say I've learned a hell of a lot from your two organizations, and I'd like to really thank you for that. I'd also like to say, though, that I was a distance education student as well. I lived in Pietermaritzburg and I did my master's at Pretoria University. And this was in the 2000s. And Pretoria University didn't quite have everything organized as we have now. So I used to have to get not my laptop, I couldn't afford one. I used to have to get my computer and put it in the back of my bakkie and leave at 4 a.m. in the morning and drive all the way up to Pretoria for lectures. So that was the fun part. It didn't happen all the time. Okay, it was only block release, but it was probably 3 or 4 times a year. And so my poor old partner Jean had to make coffee for me at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, go and make sure you're safe. So for those who are distance education students, I know what it's like learning from a distance. It can be a very lonely experience, and for those who manage to collaborate and work and motivate themselves, well done. And to all of you who are working in distance mode, you guys are heroes. You have my utmost respect. So I'm very pleased and honored to be here with you. Thank you for your time. But as always, I'm a bit of a troublemaker as well. So I am going to be asking questions and hopefully engaging in discourse, because I think that's what we do. We do discourse here. And the problem with me standing here is you are sitting and I'm standing. I've got this over here, I've got it amplified, I've got screens, and I'm not actually hearing your voices at all. So I thought I wanted to get you to start participating. And I'm going to do this in one way, really. And it might involve your phones, and it might involve you scanning a QR code. If you have got a QR code, you're welcome to scan it. If you have got important emails, and you have got other things to do, please do that, because I'm just a speaker. There are far more other important things to be doing. Right, so what I've set up over here is I've set up something called an Etherpad, okay? And the Etherpad allows you to do something similar to Google Docs, okay? So you'll scan in it, and you'll find there are 4 questions there, okay? You'll see that I've given you a prompt on, so maybe I'm a prompt engineer. Okay, no, I don't think I am. But I gave you a prompt in those 4 questions, and the 4 questions are, the first one, well, let me see if I can find it over here. Open my phone. What is the first question? Has anyone been able to scan it in? You can see the questions once you've scanned them in. This is something called an Etherpad, and it's a spectacular vernacular questions. Okay, so the first question is, where do you go to verify a fact? And all of you can answer. There's no limit on the amount of people answering. You can just, some of you say Google, cool, okay? I say, my second question is, tell me about your digital teaching and researching. You can see my thing. Yes, some people are entering to make more space. That's fine. Question 3, what are the challenges of teaching and learning within the South African landscape? Something like that. And question 4, I'm a bit nervous, so I'm not actually reading these questions properly, but you can read them far better than I can. Have you ever been digitally mentored? Okay, so you'll see those 4 questions. Please feel free to answer them. But as I say, if you've got emails, please answer them quicker. Right. My topic is spectacular vernacular, and that might seem really strange because I'm a white old man who is speaking English at you. And I'm from a dominant culture that has been responsible for colonialism and for enclosure and for a whole lot of things. And in the ideal world, we should possibly not have a white old man speaking about vernacular languages. But Denzel very kindly volunteered, allowed me to take the floor, and hopefully what I will say will be suitably appropriate. But if I do transgress cultural boundaries, please accept my apologies and feel free to correct me. Okay. I'm still learning all the time. So what I want to start is with this quote. Do not accept what you live every day. You can change the world and that of other South Africans. You have a voice in politics, in political processes, and in the wider society in which we live our daily lives. And these three young ladies here were a great example of someone who is changing their worlds. And some of the presentations here also have been a lovely example of people who are changing the worlds. So let's go in the right direction. So what is the route to spectacular vernacular? And what I mean by spectacular vernacular is we all have our own systems of thought. Okay? Did you notice the first speaker, when he spoke, there was a whole lot of things that you just didn't understand. It was a system of thought that he was comfortable with, but the majority of us thought, ooh, I don't have an idea. When I went to live in the United States for a year, I was this little young South African, 21, who'd grown up in an apartheid background. I went to live on the west coast of California, and I felt culturally unfamiliar the whole year. I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't know why I didn't fit in, but I knew I didn't fit in because I was in a different culture. And although we both spoke English, we had different values and different ways of looking at the things. And so what I want us to be thinking about is vernacular as another system of thought, okay? And there are lots of different systems of thought, and universities only have one system of thought, okay? One system of thought at UNISA, maybe even your department. When I go to WITS, and I worked at WITS for 5 years, or when I go to UCT, or when I go to NMU, there are systems of thought in those universities. Microsoft has its own system of thought, and we have language systems of thought as well. But they are spectacular. They are amazing, but we need to find ways to make them amazing. And I was just talking to Jonathan about this this morning. I was playing on Wikipedia recently, and I was in the Zulu Wikipedia. So if you want to see the Zulu Wikipedia, it's just Z. Correct me if I'm wrong, Herschel. Please feel free to. Okay, it's zu.wikipedia.org. So if you go to zu.wikipedia.org, you don't see the English Wikipedia. You see the isiZulu Wikipedia. And you see a system of thought that is totally unfamiliar to me because I wasn't brought up in isiZulu, and I was never taught under apartheid how to really read and write it. But I can use AI to translate it. And I discovered a brand that I think many of you in this room know about. It's called Maxhosa. Is that right? Okay. Now, I had never heard of Maxhosa, but I'm sure many of you had. And Maxhosa is a beautiful set of clothes that young initiates wear on the way back home from the initiation ceremony. Am I correct? And okay. I love it. So the point is, my understanding is going to be very limited because my system of thought is very small. Okay, but my point is you have a far better understanding of that, and I will leave that understanding up to you. But because we're speaking in dominant languages here, that understanding is a little bit foreign, much like I felt when I was in California. I wasn't able to put my finger on it, but there was something different that I couldn't quite get right. So, but for those people who don't know, Maxhosa then has made this wonderful brand of clothes, and it's getting wider and wider. And it really, he's a haute couture expert in South Africa. And you'll find his brand in New York, in Switzerland, in Santon, of course, but in a number of places. Now, that wasn't on English Wikipedia. So I jumped into vernacular Wikipedia. I found it, I translated it, and I put it into English Wikipedia. And now, hopefully, a couple of other people know about it. Has anyone heard of Vuk'uzenzele? What is Vuk'uzenzele? Okay, let me. Oh no, it means something. But did you know that Vuk'uzenzele is also the state newspaper? Did you know that South Africa had a state newspaper? Again, I didn't, because I'm a white guy who lives in an urban area. And my guess is most people who read Vuk'uzenzele read it because it's not sold at the local Woolworths, but it's in more kind of clinics and police stations in rural areas. Am I right, or am I horribly wrong? Again, probably my understanding is limited of it. Again, I decided, okay, let me write Vuk'uzenzele in English on Wikipedia and put it up there. Now, the nice thing about living in South Africa, and like Trump, is we can do these things. And we must celebrate that. We can be kind of, our heritage is respected. I don't know about you, but I love Heritage Day and seeing people wear things. You can see I've got a weird combination of heritage clothes on. This is not my heritage, okay? But it's fun. I don't know if it's cultural appropriation. I don't think so, because I admire the values and beauty that goes with it. Okay, so how do we make vernacular spectacular? Well, I'm going to suggest 3 things: mentorship, Wikipedia, and open incubators, okay? And this is what I'm thinking. Okay, so if you want to know a bit about me, that's me. I'm Derek. I work as a consultant for a small little independent consultancy. I'm not associated with anyone, but I do work with everyone, okay, called Web Learning. And if you scan in that, it'll invite you to, I think, create your own Wikipedia account. And really, it just involves you creating your email address or submitting your email address, and then you can get your own Wikipedia account. And it's that simple, okay? You're on. Our advice has been, when you're creating an account, you maybe use a pseudonym, because sometimes the things that you're exploring are a little bit, it might come back to haunt you. I've been an absolute fool, and I've used my real name because I want to be accountable for all the things I put on Wikipedia. So if you see Derek J. Moore on Wikipedia, you'll know that that is me who wrote it. And probably I am being foolish, but I think sometimes the faceless anonymity that we experience in some places is problematic, and I want to be accountable for everything that I put on. So that is my perspective, but if you are new, you will need to make the choice as to whether you want to be anonymous and use a pseudonym or a nom de plume, or else you use another one. Okay, talk. What is my... Oh, shoot, I was probably running out of time already. Okay, and we've got lunch, so we must hurry up. Okay, so my background. I'm going to talk a bit about that. What are the challenges within the South African education landscape of using vernacular languages? How can we create a mentorship program that makes the vernacular spectacular? What are the critical factors for success within the first year? And how do we make this sustainable? So this is not anything that's in place, I don't think, Herschel. This is definitely a proposal, and it's a whole lot of ideas, but I'm just interested to hear what you guys are thinking. I was a teacher at a school called Alexandra High School. I was also a pupil at Alexandra High School. When I was a pupil there, it was a boys-only school. It was a colonial boys-only school with only white boys. But when I went back as a teacher, I went back to a multicultural and integrated school where we had boys and girls and people of all races in the school, and it was a fantastic school because I managed to actually persuade the school to install an IT unit in the library. And it was in the library that we started exploring, with my master's in computer education, how we can use the internet for teaching and learning. And that's where I started this journey of teaching. But what I also realized is When I was teaching the children in my class, or the teenagers in the class, I had to stop for about 2 minutes every 10 or 15 minutes and ask a question, and then let the class respond to each other first, and then respond to me. And that was the epistemological, if that's the right word, process that was happening. I'm using horribly big words, excuse me. I tend to do this, and I get into lots of trouble from my children. They say, "Dad," and they're absolutely right. But the epistemological making sense of something, you do it better in your home language. And so as a history teacher, I discovered that. And for longer I taught, the more I saw an improvement in marks. And so in my 5th year of teaching, before I started working in the library, half the class got A's in history. Now, that might have just been lucky. I had bright kids. But I also like to think it had something to do with children being able to think in a way that was familiar to them, and then do something called, I can't work out whether it's code switch or translingualism. My Jean is better on that. She's at Wits University. She runs the Writing Center in the School of Law, and we have debates about this. But anyway, we certainly discovered that if we were going to teach, this is something that worked. Okay, so easy question. Where do you go to verify a fact that schools and universities normally deal with? Well, at one time, in old school world, we went to our books, we went to our libraries. But now we often actually just take our phones and we Google it. And often the result that comes up first is a Wikipedia result. And you may not see it as a Wikipedia result, but if you look carefully, it says Wikipedia over there. And so when I was studying in Pietermaritzburg, I didn't have access to a library. There weren't any online libraries. I had to drive all the way up to Pretoria to actually write my thesis. But now there are a range of different resources. And for those who are interested and who don't have access to journals, Wikipedia has a lovely facility. If you make 500 or more edits, then you get access to their journal collection. And it's a fantastic collection of journals. Suddenly I feel intelligent. It's quite a lovely feeling. Okay, so if I want to find out about Alexandra High School, I could go to Alexandra High School's website, or I could go to Alexandra High School's Wikipedia page. And if you look over there, you'll see somebody has written a profile on Alexandra High School. They've also made some comments, and those little references in there, the first 5 ones, are references I added myself. Okay, so I'm trying not just to read Wikipedia, but actually participate in Wikipedia. But let's look carefully. Can you see add languages on the top right-hand side? Is that school's Wikipedia page available in isiZulu? No, it's not. Why not? Because no one has thought about it. Okay? We're only thinking about it in English. But Alex has a boarding school, and it has young men, and they don't have girls in the school, complicated, but that's the situation they're in. Alex has a boarding school with young men from all over KwaZulu-Natal. Parents who live in rural areas are sending their kids to the boarding school. To me, it would make entire sense if some of the boarding school information was available in vernacular. It doesn't only have to be in English, it can be in both. Do you know this institution? Is it familiar? Can you see I've done screenshots of UNISA and the information associated with UNISA in a couple of languages. And if you look at the English one and you look at the Afrikaans one, you'll see that it's fairly comprehensive. But if you look at other ones, you'll see some of them are comprehensive and some of them are not. Now, I love this proudness I hear about this institution. I like the fact that we're all thinking about using technology. But the question that comes back to you is that first quote that I asked is, are we changing the world and that of other South Africans? Okay, are we actually doing something about making our language spectacular? Okay, and so how do we do that? Well, this is my proposal. Wikipedians with an ed tech or library background can assist teachers and academics and students to become part of the online commons and to begin to master the resources, services, and tools in the Wikipedian ecosphere. Now, we've started that, and I think a couple of you have joined Herschel and I and Bobby Shabangu and Matete at workshops at various places. And these are called SWIP workshops. Jessica is the expert probably. Well, okay. Anyway, I won't put you in the spot. But the idea of a SWIP workshop is we are combining Wikipedia. SADILA, the organization over here, and this is the person to speak to if you're interested in South African digital language resources. Okay, SADILA. The I is just for there. Wikipedia. Herschel is the man to speak about that. And then the third partner is help me here, PanSalb. And PanSalb then is a third partner. And what we're doing is we're finding ways in which we can help academics start to become capable Wikipedians in vernacular languages. But I think we need to take this further, and this is my proposal, is I think we need to have an incubator. And the incubator would work as follows. One, we would have, very much like these young ladies over here, we would have a team of academics who have an idea that they would like to work on, okay? And so they would get together, whether it's all in the same institution or maybe preferably cross-institution, and they would say, this is our idea. They would then apply to participate in the incubator, and they would write a brief, hence the briefcase, and the idea, okay? And the idea that they have then would then be worked together with a mentor who's holding the group and their idea, would be shared with other peers, and then would be presented on. And that would be a kind of mentorship process. They would come up with some final idea. At number 5, they would present it to the rest of their class. The 6, they would get some acknowledgement for it. And to make it sustainable, then we would invite those people who had done a fantastic idea to begin the mentorship journey again. And we would start again with, now you are no longer a mentee, but you actually become a mentor. Does that make sense? Okay. Oh, come on, Derek. You got to point the right direction. I always do this. Hey, I point at the screen instead of the device. So, sustainable and vernacular Wikipedia. So, if you're worried about crime, you join the local policing forum, the neighborhood watch. If you're worried about education, you join the governing body. If you're worried about the hungry, you join a soup kitchen. If you're worried about unreliable information, well, I really sound like a cheesy salesman, don't I? Forgive me. I really am a history teacher. I've never been trained in sales. And I'm a fairly useless businessman as well. So what are some of the roadblocks that we have to deal with? Senior management has a different way of seeing the world, okay? And many of you aspire to be senior managers. I never wanted to be a headmaster. I always felt terribly sorry for the headmaster's son. But senior management's focus is on things like efficiency, quantification, and calculability, predictability. You as academics, you're concerned with the research, teaching, and service. And now I'm asking you to be involved in a 16-week mentorship program for aspiring Wikipedians. But if we did it online, and if we had 1 hour for our cohort meeting and 1 hour for our individual mentee-mentor meeting, over a 16-week period, it starts to become manageable. And if we do it online, then it means you don't have to face the traffic. That's the way it will work. A group of potential Wikipedians have a great idea. They sign up for mentorship. A recognition incubator encourages them to express this idea. After acceptance into the incubator, mentees meet regularly with a cohort of other stewards on their mentors. A great idea has been refined and ready for public presentation. All great ideas are presented and showcased at a public presentation. Participants' work is acknowledged with a certificate of open badge, and then participants with a completed project are invited to join in a different role. And so can you see what we're doing? We're bouncing backwards and forwards between a cohort in a class and then a mentor kind of helping each time. So, what are some of the things we need to think of doing? Well, we need to work on our open infrastructure. Can I ask you just to look at this beautiful room, to look at the nice microphones, the wonderful speakers and the subwoofers, and when all the presentations happen, it does things to your soul, doesn't it? But that's not our bedrooms where we learn in, or our lounges, or our offices. If we're lucky, Wi-Fi is working, and you don't have to bring your own data. And if we're lucky, then the electricity stays on as well. Or if we're lucky, our laptop hasn't been stolen. It's happened to me a number of times. Okay, so we need to realize that we here are in a lovely environment where we can explore new things, and it's a lovely, comfortable environment. But we need to be thinking about the infrastructure where young people are learning or academics are learning. Joburg City Library, I'm afraid, was closed for 5 years. I went to the reopening on Saturday morning, and the mayor was there, and he said he would be working on opening all the Joburg libraries that have been closed. And I was very pleased to hear that. But I think we need to be thinking about the students that are studying. Are they able to go to the library Monday to Friday and Saturday as well? If they're not, have you said anything to your local politician or your librarian or your local government leader? How can we make sure that people who want to study can? Because the roots have to be firm. If we're going to do this fantastic digital stuff, we can't only have children with nice licenses and comfortable homes doing it. It needs to be available for everybody, okay? If we get the roots right, then we might see some fruits. I can't promise anything, but I have experienced fruits growing from various people's initiatives. That concept formation that you girls talked about, I think that is crucial. It's not skills, it's being able to think about something, and once you've got your concepts correct, then skills flow out of concepts. So I thought that was very, very good. And then shoots, well, that's where we start seeing brilliance. I also think academics, we need to be starting to conduct research into this. I like AI because it makes me feel confident. I use AI and it has a great answer for me every time. Is it right? Often it's not. And that confidence that I feel, I think, is a false confidence. And my suggestion is, I think we need to be working hard on collecting our evidence around the claims that we make. And so exploring your own practices. I loved your reflections, gals, on what you were doing. What you were doing was you weren't only showing us your work, you were showing us the process that you got to your work. And I think that is fantastic. There's a man called Seymour Papert. Okay, Seymour Papert was at Wits University. Some of you old people here might remember the turtle game on your computers, where you had to direct a turtle to the left or the right. But the way you directed those turtles was you had to do computational thinking, and you had to direct the turtle in different directions. Tanks, I don't know if you've heard of tanks. Tanks is a similar kind of concept. But the idea is, how do you get people to think computationally? And those things need to be researched. So we can't just say, AI will do this. we need to research it, and we need to be able to be critical about this. And then we need to be looking at open professional development. And I think this incubator, for me, is an open professional development idea. Okay, so because I'm a country boy, I don't know what I am actually. Probably a fool. Because I'm a country boy, I think we need to be thinking of doing this in urban areas, but then also in rural areas. And how do we be UNISA students when we are far away from these centres? And what are some of the things that we need to be thinking of? And to me, this is kind of the onboarding process that we need to be thinking about. And I won't go into too much detail about it. But I want us to be thinking about the process of getting a person onto these platforms. Okay, so my final QR code, I think, I've got maybe one more. I, again, would like to invite you to respond to some of these ideas that I've shared. And in the Wikipedia, in the same document that you saw earlier on, I'm going to ask you to answer my badly phrased question. Is this the route to spectacular vernacular? Okay, that's the first one. Do you want to be a mentor? If you do, please leave your email address. I'm not saying anything will happen. Are you willing to contribute to the commons? Would you like to learn how to actually use Wikipedia and contribute to, let's say, the UNISA Wikipedia pages in vernacular? Or would you like to join an incubator? And I think that's me. That last QR code is an example of an academic it was VUT, I think, Herschel, reading her Wikipedia page that she wrote in her mother tongue. And it was a lovely moment because you saw this person who had knowledge that was her knowledge in her own language, reading it in her own language and being recognized for that. And to me,